Hey Zach, you ready to do this review? Zach? Where is he now? Zach? I swear we can't keep doing this every time we want to do a review. Where the hell is he? He's probably in there. Zach, what are you doing in here?
Iron Skull making weapon!
Zach, where the hell have you been? I've been looking for you everywhere.
Yes, Iron Skull making sharper weapon. Iron Skull kill people. Iron Skull like kill.
Zach, what the hell happened to you? Can you even understand me?
Oh, you want Iron Skull to kill you too?
I'm warning you, Iron Skull. Stay back.
Oh, what is that? Iron Skull want?
It's a gun. It kills people quite efficiently. You want it?
Yes, Iron Skull want. Iron Skull like kill.
Okay. Here we go.
Oh, Iron Skull like gun.
Just gotta be careful with it, yeah?
But how does it work?
Great. I guess I'll do the review by myself then. Oh, hi guys, welcome to the ZT review. Sadly, as you know, Zach may not be with us right now. But,
Hey, I can see you started without me.
Yeah, of course I did, yeah. No worries, mate, glad to have you back.
Thanks for getting it kicked off. We're reviewing The Time Warrior. Your first Third Doctor story?
No, actually, not
No?
my first.
What was your first?
Planet of the Spiders.
Oh, was it now? Okay,
Yeah.
when did you watch that?
I watched that around the same time I first watched Genesis of the Daleks, because of the lead-in to Tom.
Okay, cool. Well, we're reviewing this today. Why? I'm in the Third Doctor's era with my marathon, and I thought I'd skip ahead to this episode. Yeah, we watched it last night, and this is not your first classic story, but it is among like the first handful that you've watched, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting his opinion on it, and also it's been a little while since I've watched it, so we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about The Time Warrior. First story with the Sontarans appearing, Sontaran singular. First Sarah Jane story. What do you think?
I thought it was pretty good for an early episode, an early series. I like the way that they structured these episodes rather than the usual format of introduce the companion first and then the monster. It's refreshing to see the alien first and have that introduction, have that suspense, and then have the companion not immediately take to the Doctor as this fantastic, new person, and rather be a little confrontational, a bit more clueless, as it were.
Yeah, well, that's a great point that you bring that up. This is a rarity when it comes to introducing companions in Doctor Who, and also a rarity in that the first thing we see is Irongron meeting Lynx. We don't see no Doctor, we don't see no companion. We get introduced to the Doctor and companion after all that setup has happened, which is an interesting way to do it. It's almost like they had like a cold open without there being like a credit, like a title sequence to split that up from the rest of like the Doctor and companion meeting stuff in part one. But I think it's fun. It caught me off guard because I forgot that's how it was. That's how it played out in this episode, because I'm used to the normal format of Doctor in TARDIS, Doctor meets companion, Doctor goes with companion to place, new alien, new blah. It's a tried and tested formula, but this breaks that formula, I feel, and it's fun. It caught me off guard, and it was very pleasantly surprised. I guess, have you got your notes on your phone? Because I did ask you some questions about the episode as we were watching it, and I didn't want to know your answer until we were recording.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on John Pertwee as the Doctor?
I do enjoy Pertwee as the Doctor. He is, rather than just being Tom Baker, where he's that kind of the first kind of child man, as it were. I think you described it best. Pertwee is kind of like a Bond in this, where
he's very elegant, but he is also an action hero.
Yeah, very efficient. He's very quick with the. I mean, it is 70s or 69, 70-ish, but
70s,
he's got that moment where he's just Magic, paw!
Yep.
It's just those one simple knockouts. You drag someone over, they fall on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of slapstick in a sense, but at the
is.
same time, it is very
It's
enjoyable.
good fun though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you thought his performance in this was good, and at
Yeah.
large, what do you feel?
He's a very confident and self-assured one. He's not very arrogant, but he can be a bit cheeky, especially with
Yes.
the bit with Sarah Jane
Very
and
cheeky. He's like, "Are you just
detector."
going to sleep there? If you'll allow me to."
Yeah.
Which is a great moment.
And this, I think, is the Doctor where you know the conversation that Sarah Jane has with Rose in School Reunion, where he says, "Does he do that thing where he talks about 90 miles an hour?" And you just stand there going like, "What?" And he looks at you like he just dribbled on the floor. He's the Doctor. I think this is where the comment came from.
No, I think that Tom Baker's Doctor can be a bit arrogant and like.
No, it's just the speed that he talks. That
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah.
it detects thrombulent particles and it goes at 70 miles an hour. You talk like this, and you think you have to understand me, and you have to understand me because there's a test coming at the end of the day. Did you get everything?
5.
Great.
But yeah, I love John Pertwee. He's in like top 5 Doctors for me. So getting to see this story, this is one of my more favourite stories of his. And Sontarans, you can't go wrong with the Sontarans.
No.
First story with Liz Sladen as well. God rest her soul.
Damn. She was a character to behold.
Yeah, she was. And Sarah Jane to boot was an amazing character to see in the show. Yeah, so what do you think of like the plot on a whole, I guess, is my next question.
It definitely suits a Sontaran. It needs to have that kind of element of war and battle and conflict, because otherwise a Sontaran is... He's just the talking potato, isn't he? He needs to have that reason to fight and that reason to incite a conflict. And it's good as well that he has the ability to pull things back and forth through the timeline. So then he's kind of inciting.
Yeah, so he's in medieval times. And he's basically yanking scientists from the present, even though it's the past, but it's the future, to the medieval time.
They're present.
Wibbly wobbly timey wimey, and he's using those scientists to fix his ship. I love that you mentioned this, like, I love how they didn't change the design of the Sontaran ship too much, and I'm like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And one interesting thing is, as describing the Sontaran in the script and on screen, they describe them as Sontaran as short. But Lynx is not short.
No, he's
the same height as everyone else. In fact, maybe taller than a few of them.
He's taller than Sarah Jane in this.
He is, and yet they sort of describe him as being short. Maybe that's why the new series depicted them as short with their prosthetics and everything, and how they're seen. But I've always loved the Sontarans being taller because they just feel more imposing. I think a bit more menacing to me. They're a bit more brutish and.
I kind of like the juxtaposition, because, at least for me, when I first got introduced to the Sontarans, them being short, I didn't really pay much attention to.
Right.
Because in that first time where I got introduced to them in Sontaran Statute and Poison Sky with David Tennant.
God, really?
And for me, they seemed a bit more overpowered because they had the Cordelin signal, they had the hypnotic suggestion, they could just capture anything, and then they just zap. And then it seemed so specific about the probic vent in the back. For me, they felt more unbeatable than even the Daleks for some reason.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
At the time, I didn't see too many Dalek episodes, so for me, they were the pinnacle of war, as it were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, me kind of looking at them and seeing them as short, it's funny, but at the same time, I didn't feel like they could be beaten at the start.
I think maybe the reason I don't like the idea of them being short in the new series is because it's begun like the sort of them being used as just comedic relief in the 11th Doctor's era, with Strax being literally called Potato Man by the Doctor himself. So that kind of it's the thing with Doctor Who where you can't really mock your monsters too much, otherwise the cracks will start to form. Like when you start calling your Daleks tin pepper pots, that's when people stop finding them scary. Which is why the Weeping Angels haven't lost their charm yet, because they haven't been mocked on screen by the Doctor yet, whereas Sontarans have, Cybermen have, Daleks are, Sladen have. It's just a long line of monster. You don't want to take the piss out of the monster you've created, otherwise, they're not really threatening anymore. No. So that might be why I don't like them as much in the new series, though I think they were fixed somewhat in the Chibnall era, but then they did the chocolate line in Flux, and so that kind of ruined it.
I did appreciate that the updated Sontarans during the Flux series, they remnant more of.
They look so
Lynx.
close to this sort of stuff, yeah.
It was definitely apparent looking at Lynx that it felt so familiar in the Chibnall era.
Yeah.
And I do say, I think I prefer the colour scheme of this
Yeah,
than the teal blue.
Yeah, the deep like blue. It's like a navy blue, isn't it? Right?
Yeah,
Something like that.
It's definitely more alien, but then it's less intimidating.
It feels more comic booky when you see them in that colour, whereas this, it does feel like armour. You know, it feels like battle armour.
Yeah. The hair is a choice, though.
I think it's a nice choice. I think it kind of adds to like make it feel a little bit more real. For me, at least, I feel like with the new series, I think I said this to you, their prosthetic heads with like RTD and Moffat, their era respectively, they feel a bit too plasticky and rubbery. Their like head does, whereas this, it does feel a little bit more real. I feel, but maybe also the old film being lower quality video might also play into it feeling a bit more real because not as high def. Yeah. Lynx is good. Lynx is played by, I don't know who his name is, but he also plays Field Major Steyer in the next Sontaran episode as well. So they basically just reused the costume but changed the head.
Yeah.
I think he does a great job. I feel like there's an element of the Sontarans missing in New Who where there's not as much of a in this, Lynx is very cunning. He's very devious, isn't he? He's using Iron Gron to fix his ship, and he talks in a way that is very upspoken Old English, which is a part and parcel of the times when they made this, because that's how they would have written their script. But it is also nice that the Sontaran has some sort of critical thinking and not just dumb, brooding, brain-dead like clone soldiers, because that's kind of all they are in like some new series episodes.
Yeah.
So,
but then it's also refreshing as well because not only is he cunning intellectually, but there's that moment where Iron Gron is about to, whack him with the axe, and he doesn't even need to use a stick or a rifle or anything. He just backhands him and he's against the table.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to see that a soldier can still, intimidate someone without needing the rest of his weapons. I don't feel like we see that in New Who anymore.
No, it's always Sontarans flashing about their toys, like they've got the stick, they've got their gun, and it's like, ooh, here we go. There's no actual hand-to-hand.
No, which obviously they wouldn't have if they're, shorter.
Yeah.
Feel my wrath.
I think this is this is the strongest portrayal of the Sontarans, I think, with this story. But I might be biased. But yeah, I also like we mentioned earlier, I love how Sarah Jane isn't just following the Doctor around, because oftentimes companions fall into that trap, and then in the classic series where they are just mouthpieces for the audience, and they're just asking questions. What's this? What's that? And they're just following the Doctor all episode. I love that Sarah Jane is doing her own thing. She's a stowaway. She went and joined King Edward. No, just Sir Edward or something. And playing against the Doctor for a time before she realised the Doctor wasn't working with Lynx, which was really cool. I love that angle that Sarah Jane isn't just blindly following the dude. She's questioning him because he's got a fucking time machine, and she thinks that the Doctor's sending scientists into the past. I think it's a fun twist on introducing a companion through this way.
It's definitely very initiative and progressive in a plot sense because
it's giving her a lot more. It's giving her a lot more agency as a character.
Yeah, not just asking questions for our sake, but she's adding to it, and then it puts more in the plot than would otherwise be if the companion was just a case of, well, why are you here? What's going on? What is this? It's not just a simple, oh, here's the alien, stop the alien, go home. It can be a little frustrating, admittedly, since me knowing Sarah Jane, she's very intuitive and understands the situation quite easily. And so for her first instincts thinking, the Doctor is the villain. It's one of those things where you kind of think, no, he's not. He's not. You can't think that just because he took you back, you stowed away. It's your fault.
What about Iron Gron? He's an interesting fellow, isn't he?
He is a bit flat for a
bit of a
B villain, but at the same time, it works. He can't be too distracting for the audience in terms of getting away from Lynx, because he is the villain of the week.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he does just enough to balance and bounce off him.
He does.
Where he needs to be kind of, "Oh, I'm doing my own thing. You'll get me as if you know what's good for you."
Yeah,
He's got a few good one-liners, and he's got a very. It keeps things on track.
He challenges Lynx as well, because obviously Lynx is stranded. Sure, Lynx is an alien, but he needs Irongron's help to get out, whether he wants to admit it or not.
Yeah.
And like the sort of backdrop of like the medieval times is fun when you have Irongron against like Sir Edward and them fighting. It's a good backdrop, and also like kind of it does put on display everything a Sontaran loves, which is experiencing war. And I love the line afterwards when, because the Doctor like tricks Irongron's like troops when looks like puts dummies on like the walls, and Irongron's people like flee, and he goes, "Oh, why didn't you help, Lynx?" And he goes, "I don't interfere with petty conflicts with primitives. I simply wanted to see how it would play out." And I thought that was quite fun.
You didn't do much help when you ran away. You ran away as well.
Well, touche. No, but
also just a side note as well for the dude playing Irongron, because Irongron.
Iron Skull.
Because obviously this was probably before the times of green screen and editing shots between. There's this one clip just after the dummy bit when the Doctor's throwing those stink bombs over the wall, and the archer has shot an arrow and it lands in a tree. It's interesting to see how close he was to that tree, and if he's got any kind of background in stunt double, because if he was as close to that tree as it was portrayed, that's really brave.
I know, it doesn't even flinch, did he?
No. You have to trust that archer, or you just have to assume that it was something.
It's over. Your life is over. You say your prayers goodbye. Also, going back to that, I like that because obviously the Doctor's morals are always on display. Like, he doesn't want to harm people, and Sarah is like, "Yeah, well, you didn't have to hurt anyone with it." It's like, and he's like, "My dear, it's just a pretty ghastly smell. Is all I sent over the wall, really," or whatever he said.
Yeah, it's just
like she thought he sent bombs over, and really it's just smoke and mirrors and a few stink bombs, and they were off. Which I like that they take the time to show that the Doctor's intentions were just to scare them and wasn't for anything else. Yeah. What other notes did you write down?
Other notes that I made. So, spoke about how the opening scenes without the Doctor and his companion. It's refreshing to see the familiarities in the Sontaran, with his stoic attitudes for the glory of the Sontaran Empire. Not revealing the probic vent. I mentioned this by the time we got to episode 3.
Yeah.
I thought that they weren't going to mention the vent at this point.
Did you expect that they added the probic vent in a future episode or something?
Possibly, because it would.
Interesting.
Because he describes the Sontarans as being clone bred in episode 1 when he interrogates Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
And you kind of assume at this point that the vent could be just a feeding tube. And so by the time you get to episode 4, it's cool to see that they saved the weakness until the very last episode. Because if they had introduced it too early, it would have just been too quick to finish him all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I did enjoy that too. Yeah, and as for the scientists working on the ship, that was fun, and the Doctor getting captured. Funny little scene of him sat at the table, and whenever he moves, he goes. I enjoy that. And then when he gets the blind scientist to come help, he presses the wrong button and goes, "Not that button, dear old chap, please! Fucking hell!" Yeah, it was great.
I like how the notion of the Time Lords to Lynx is really different now to what it would have been by the time.
Oh yeah,
Star.
I said
Just,
this. Yeah, when they were talking, when the Doctor and Lynx first officially met, when they were like, "Oh, who are you? I am a Time Lord," and then he's saying, "Oh, you never seem to interfere in conflicts," and blah 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 blah. blah. And I'm like, wow, that sentence aged interestingly now that the Time Wars happened.
I mean, even the Doctor calls his own people galactic ticket inspectors.
Yeah, he does. That's fun. How times have changed.
Yeah. It's nice as well to see that, this may be the first time we as the audience see the Sontarans.
Yes.
But the Doctor kind of says, "You've met our kind before, unfortunately."
And I first thought, why would they assume that the Doctor's met Sontarans before? But then you said, well, maybe the Doctor's just experienced, the war between the Rootans and the Sontarans before, and that's that maybe. Because this is the first on-screen TV Sontaran episode. So, but I mean that does leave open room for expanded media for the first and second Doctor to experience Sontaran stories and Big Finish and books, right? So I suppose that's a good thing for that. It's just interesting that they decided to write that line in if it's the first Sontaran episode. But anyway.
It's also very creative, this episode, with how much they add into it. Because they've got medieval England, and you've got the power struggle between Iron Brawn and the Sir. Then you have in it an alien war soldier who's kind of now infiltrating, and then he starts mucking up the timeline, stealing present-day doctors whilst also giving them...
Not present-day doctors, scientists.
Present-day scientists, sorry, my fault. So then you got that time model, and then he introduces a walking...
Oh yeah, that fucking piece of shit. That was an interesting little thing. So, I mean, the effects in it are interesting. That thing was interesting. The fight scene in the courtyard is a bit hammy, and you see the Doctor basically running circles around all these guards. It's quite funny to watch. It's like that sort of a scene you need like the Benny Hill theme to play as that goes on, really. But anyway, sorry, you were going to say.
But it's interesting to see how much they juggle in this as opposed to keeping it just simple in one note, because they could have just had, a
Sontaran in medieval times. Yeah. But no, you have the conflicts in medieval times. You have the scientists being like kidnapped, and then Sarah Jane being introduced as well. There's a lot of moving parts in the story.
Could have just been a simple one note, and Links could have just feigned getting in the resources. I was half expecting that. I didn't really think that a Sontaran would follow through.
No.
Especially considering in later editions they don't keep to their word, so you kind of assume that they're just at their own disposal.
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting to see how Links is the man of his word, or the Sontaran of his word. Comparing him to how other kind of things he's done, so I haven't watched these episodes in full, but I know of these moments. So the Doctor fencing with the Master for the first time, his interactions with trying to help the Silurians and the Sea Devils.
Right.
And so for him, on one hand, he's very compliant and trying to help the Silurians, and he does still, in effect, near the end, try to help Links safely get back without having to
he
kill
wanted
anyone.
to try and bargain with Links. He was saying, if you let these people go, I can find a way to get you off this planet safely.
But it's interesting to see how Pertwee handles each of these different characters differently. So with the Silurians, he's very cooperative, and sometimes he has to give them a bit more.
Yeah.
With the Master, he's trying to be very familiar, but also balanced. Whereas with the Sontaran, he's headstrong, he's assertive, he has to lay down exactly what he says, because that's how the Sontaran would behave. That's the only thing they would respect.
He's very diplomatic. He really is. I enjoy the subtlety that goes with Pertwee's Doctor because of that very reason. How he does seem to interact with these different races in very different ways, and he seems to know what he's doing all the time. He's like he definitely feels in control of every situation he's in. Like if you were to say, ask me, if you were to travel with any Doctor, which one would you feel safest with? I'd probably say Pertwee. I really probably would. Because he's not a wild card like Troughton or Tom Baker. He's not a bit wacky and not all there like Matt Smith can be sometimes, or maybe Jodie, or maybe even early Paul McGann, or maybe Sylvester McCoy.
Not as volatile and aggressive as Eccleston.
Or Capaldi, or Hartnell. But I think Pertwee is friendly, familiar, but he's in control. He's like an expert at like everything that he does, really.
And even when he had, like you said earlier, when he had the thing on his head, he's calm, he's collected. He's like, no, not that button, not that button.
He's in control of every situation he's in. It feels, very much so.
And even when it wasn't working for him, he's still really calm and just, thank you for that. No, Sarah Jane, that was nothing, and a bit more, and I would be dead, but thank you.
What other notes have you got on this? What other things did you write about it while we were watching?
Nothing else that we haven't really covered already. The medieval knights, as I said with Irongron, funny to an extent, but they do.
Yeah, Link's made like a remote control knight that looks a bit wacky.
Yeah,
but it's fun when the Doctor's in the costume and the Doctor has to like fight, and they realise that it's the Doctor in there, not the soldier.
Yeah,
so that was a fun little moment.
Sarah Jane's attitude towards time travel, because at first she thinks that it's all a fantasy. It's all dress up. It's cosplay.
Yeah,
It's
she spends
everything
way
else.
too
Yeah.
long thinking that she's in some sort of like role play thing before she realizes she's actually in danger. Bless her.
And it's funny to see the knight's iteration of it. Just, God, she really is mad. She's just continuing and rattling on and rattling on.
Yeah.
And then she, through some genius intuition, thinks that the Doctor is responsible for all of this, despite the fact that she never saw him take the other Doctor.
Yeah, I think that's a cool new spin on it, I think, for this story. Right, so how do you think this does at introducing you to Sarah Jane?
I think it does well, because again, she's very progressive as a character. She's independent, pushes the story forward, isn't just trailing the audience on like a mule. It's refreshing to see that the character does their own thinking, as opposed to just only what the plot requires.
Yeah, and how does this compare to other classic stories you've watched? What have you watched? You've watched Genesis, you've watched...
Planet of the Spiders.
Yeah, Planet of the Spiders.
10th Planet.
Oh, right, yeah.
And...
Survival.
Yes, Survival, of course, Survival.
And then what? Have you watched Remembrance yet?
No, I haven't yet.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well,
No.
So how does this compare to the ones you've seen so far? Is it as good, not as good, the best, the worst, anything where it's somewhere in between?
I feel like it's good as well when you watch this first and then reflecting back on Genesis of the Daleks, seeing Sarah's progression.
Yeah, it is actually, because that's like not towards the end, but it's definitely in her latter half of her tenure on the show, that's for sure.
Yeah, where she's no longer getting caught left-handed, but in that one she gets caught deliberately in Genesis, doesn't she?
Does she?
No, she doesn't. No, because
think
the
she
people
does.
come up after her, don't she?
Yeah, she kind of gets captured a lot in Genesis. Whereas in this, she's got quite a lot of agency as a character, which is fun to see, actually.
Yeah, but no, she is still very... Oh, God, I keep saying productive. Think of a new word. But no, it's in character, it's in tempo, and it's still familiar as Sarah Jane. She's the same throughout the whole show, and it's lovely getting to see that. Seeing Pertwee again in an episode earlier than Planet of the Spiders, it's good to still see him being that self-assured, confident, Bond-esque kind of character.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier with the Sontaran, it's good that he's not just the same note for every villain.
Yes, I agree. Sontarans are good. I think most of the supporting cast actually do hold their own quite well. I'm quite fond of the performances there.
The
Characters
Doctor without
seem
his glasses.
decent, if a bit one note potentially sometimes, yeah. But for the most part, pretty good. We also got a lovely little cameo of the brig at the start of the adventure, which was lovely to see. But yeah, I guess the only thing is like we kind of do completely leave behind the modern day setting when they go back to investigate, the missing scientists, right?
We never even see the TARDIS interior in this episode.
No, that happens a lot in Classic Who.
Yeah.
Like, you never see the interior of the TARDIS in Genesis. You never see it in Sontaran Experiment. I don't think you see it in Talons of Weng Chiang either.
You don't even see it in Survival.
You don't see it in Survival. So yeah, it's a rarity for you seeing the interior. But good story. What are you giving it out of 10? What was your rating for Genesis, another Classic Who, first of all?
Oh, God. I can't remember what I gave Genesis. I think I gave Genesis a 9 or a 10.
Right, yeah. And
Survival, I think, was 8 or 9.
right.
I know I gave that one a high mark. For this one, for Time Warrior, I'm going to give it 8.
Are you? Okay, lovely. I'm giving it a 10. I'm at 9.5, 10. I don't know. But yeah, brilliant. Brilliant story. Sontarans are great. Doctor, companion. It's good stuff. And also, this is the first adventure with the title sequence, the second title sequence of John Pertwee, which is then those effects are reused for the fourth Doctor's title sequence. But yeah, besides that, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. We certainly enjoyed reviewing it. Yeah, that's it. Guess we'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
Sontar.
No, that's a new series thing. Oh, come on, man.
I'm sorry.
You should be.